All right, my name is Taylor, and I'm just kind of showing you off the Slate-Case AQ today. So, let's get to it. This is what the dark satin looks like. You can see it's got a really nice, smooth anodized finish all the way around, contrasted by that black grill on the front and the back. So you'll get that case, including with all the cables that it has for the IOs as well. And you also get one of these cool angled DP 1.4 adapters. And we'll get soon to why you'll probably want one of these for this. And it's primarily, as you can see, because this is more of a vertical oriented case, and the IO is actually on the bottom. A little bit untraditional, but you've probably seen that in some other products. So let's get to how are you going to interact with this. So first, once you get this, you'll notice that there's a solid panel. This will be either solid aluminum, anodized the same as the caps, or glass. So the glass is like a dark tint with a paint border on the inside, really clean looking. And then on the other side, by default, you also get one of these perforated panels. This is a high quality perforated panel. Just as a side point, this is a review sample, factory sample, so there might be some small minor defects in it, but for the most part it represents pretty much what you'll be getting when you receive this product in the mail after you pre-ordered and waited for it to be manufactured. So let's get to the first point. Once you get this, you're probably going to look at it, feel around with it. It's 19.7 liters, and it is a little bit heavy on the side because we're using really high quality materials, thicker gauge steel, thicker CNC and formed aluminum, so it fits around about 12 pounds for the product itself, plus any of the accessories that you'll get, that you can order with it. We'll get to those later. So, the first interaction you're going to have when building is you want to remove the side panels. By doing this, you'll find the seam between the grill and the side panel. You'll pull up from one side, either left or right first, and then you'll rotate out. So these are actually secured by 4 different magnets that are along these columns here. And you'll see these columns are steel. Those magnets are high quality grade magnets. We actually went through the process of making sure that these magnets are kind of like the right strength so that you can feel they hold in the panel, but they also aren't too difficult to take off. Looking around, we've noticed that some people have like issues with that. So one side, then second side, side to side, comes right off. And then come the front and the back black grills. These are CNC aluminum. This example is actually powder coated matte. However, these will actually arrive anodized in the final product. We found that it's a higher quality, just a better finish for this application. So yeah, very high quality panel. We really didn't want to skimp on this one. And so you know that you're getting something good for a $300+ case. So you'll take the front off and the back off. These are also held in by magnets. These are just lower strength magnets. And then this right here is the chassis. So the chassis is made up of cold rolled formed powder coated steel components, mostly the fan plates, which I call these, which are kind of like columns essentially. And those are secured to the bottom and top caps. We didn't want to waste any of the potential advantage of having these aluminum parts not being a function of the chassis, so we wanted to really incorporate those into the structure. And this actually worked out really well. So this is where you can actually start building. And at this point, it really depends on the configuration of your hardware, right? So like what size components you have, size of your GPU, etc. On one side you'll find the motherboard and PSU, And on the other side, you find for the GPU, this is actually a sandwich layout, right? So you can see that this spine separates space from motherboard and GPU, right? You'll see that there is a front I/O, and then there's also a rear I/O. So what we've done here is, since this is a bottom-oriented motherboard I/O, we wanted to have kind of like a clear path to route your rear cables from that bottom I/O, so you'll see a through hole. But then you also see 2 additional USB 3.0 ports, and then your general power plug right there. On the front, you've actually got, this is actually kind of unique, is a MX Cherry green switch for your power switch. So you can actually take those out, put on different switches. Not all switches will necessarily fit because different switches have sometimes different little tolerances and geometry. But yeah, you can switch those out too. And then you've got mic and audio, and then USB-C as well. So in general, for most people, you've got plenty of ports and access. So yeah, this is kind of like, we're getting to the cool part. So we pretty much just covered the general areas. The really cool thing about this case that makes it so much different than other cases is its modular core assembly. So this is this part that I'm holding up right here. You can see that it's super rigid right now. It's not going anywhere. But we took advantage of doing some cool CNC work in the inside to create these rails that are installed into the caps. And using a T-slot inspired locking geometry, you can actually loosen those nuts. I'll do that right now. And you can slide that entire core assembly. Sometimes you need to press on those nuts after you loosen them because they're tapered and they lock really well. So I'm just loosening all 6 of those nuts right now so that we can now move the core assembly. Just give me a moment. So 4 on the bottom area where the I/O routing goes, and then 2 on the top near the PSU. So once those are loose, I can actually slide the entire core assembly. There's no fixed location for this. And that's the really cool thing about this, like, that's so different from any other cases, is now we can actually accommodate for different size cooling, different kinds of builds, different kind of water cooling routes. And we're really excited to see what people want to do with this. We had our own ideas about what that means, right? But we kind of want to see what other people will do with this. So just to put an example, let's say an average setup, someone might have an AIO on one side and they just put an air-cooled GPU. Well, let's say they want to do water-cooled, but they want a big-ass radiator. They ship that thing all the way over. Now you can actually have up to a 60 millimeter thick radiator, and you've just dramatically increased your cooling capacity while still having the same case. So that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool, and I think you should find out too.